We got a new one. So anyways, we get off on off the gate.
I circled the most important thing.
Went out the door, and about 50 feet down was back violations.
Basil.
Here.
Whitmire. Here. Jordan. Here. Oak Ridge. Here. Sabatino.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Rivas.
Welcome everyone. Nice to see you all here. We have a few citizens' hearings. First on the list is Catherine. Jody Williams.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all this evening. Tonight, I would like to address my comments specifically to the Mayor and Service Director, in addition to the City Council. My name is Jody Williams. I am representing myself and my husband, Jim Williams. As we are under contract to purchase a house within St. Clairsville city limits, we have much interest and concern regarding the quality and condition of the water system. I have attended almost every council meeting in the last 5 months, and I'm dismayed at the condescending responses that have often been made by Mayor Pugh and Service Director Zuckel to the City Council's legitimate concerns and questions. I find it very frustrating that there is a reluctance to answer questions with concrete data and information that can be understood and then explored. Options were publicly discussed during the August 28th council meeting by the engineering firm Quicksall. The engineers conceded that St. Clairsville is not in a unique situation, that almost all municipalities are experiencing water infrastructure concerns. Due to this concession, how many municipalities are we working with to uncover options more pertinent to our water conditions? Wouldn't it make sense and serve all local communities to come together in order to explore all safe water alternatives? Have any of our neighboring towns found that selling their water is the most equitable solution? Julie from RCAP also presented financing alternatives, where the contradictions regarding interest rates and the proposed water rates, were they ever resolved? My career as a pharmaceutical representative provided me with training that emphasizes the importance of concrete data, safety information, and the demographics to make necessary and informed decisions. You can't just say something, you must prove it. Have you proven to the City Council and the citizens of St. Clairsville that the selling of our water is the only solution? I believe that water is a very precious resource, and that the quality, safety, and access are all citizenry entitlements. Those entitlements, Mayor and Service Director, are your responsibilities. After the executive session on September 10th, during the open meeting, Mayor Pugh and Service Director Zuckel stated that everyone needs to work together. I would like to completely agree with that. However, please define everyone. Is it just you two and Aqua? Is it you two and 4 of the council members? Please define everyone. It would be my limited political understanding that everyone would include every resident in St. Clairsville. You consistently state that we keep kicking the can down the road. Who are you referring to when we state we? And what is the can? And where is the road? So basically, according to the EPA, this kicking is coming to an end. And the only solution that you're proposing is to sell our water. This is being decided without adequate due diligence. This is a major economic and health-related decision. Mr. Zuckel, as Service Director, can you supply documentation of improvements and maintenance to our water system over the 3 years that you have been Director? Mr. Zuckel and Mayor Pugh, have you explored the alleged lawsuits that Aqua is involved in and the legal concerns that Aqua faces? Can Aqua meet the EPA timeline in a satisfactory way? Why is the EPA suddenly issuing ultimatums and deadlines when past water samples have met their standards? There are just too many unanswered questions and too many contradictions. In order to get the citizens of St. Clairsville behind this project, will you obtain a third party to explore all options and present a written proposal or report with 3 viable solutions? Include all costs, financing alternatives, increased resident rates, and long-term feasibilities. This would enable council to compare apples to apples and then to make an informed and knowledgeable decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. We now have Mike Ostovich.
I'd like to first thank everyone for being here tonight and taking time out of their evening. My name's Mike Ostovich. I'm a 40-year resident and a 40-year business person here in St. Clairsville. I have a lot of concerns about a lot of different things. We don't even have time to get into all my concerns here tonight. But, you know, I just remember in looking at situations that we're dealing with now, I remember as a young man, to give you an example, I had a car that had a bad tire on it. And every day I'd have to put air, or every other day I'd have to put air in that tire. And I just remember doing that every day or two. And I remember my dad telling me at that point in time, get that tire fixed before you get stranded. Guess what? That tire blew out on a cold, rainy night, and regretfully, I knew I had to call Dad. I was on Route 33 in Athens, Nelsonville, Ohio area. It's pouring down rain, and I remember my dad today, December today, saying, "Son," I remember him saying, "bad judgment and incompetency on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part." And I think he let me sit there for longer than he probably should have. Isn't that what we're really dealing with here today? It's like my worn tire. Why hasn't the water situation been monitored and dealt with before now? By the current administration. Deterioration, rusty pipes don't happen overnight. This did not happen overnight. That's my question. And in addition to that, why hasn't a Class 3 operator been hired by the powers to be? We know we've needed one since March. Why hasn't it been done? Why the closed door meetings by both council and certain members? Here's my take. In my opinion, I can see the city millions of dollars in debt and the Aqua sale being a bailout for the current administration. And along with other residents that I've had the pleasure to speak with, I believe that the mayor, Mr. Zuppel, and some of the council members before me thought that that Aqua was in the bag, and the residents of this fine community would just fall victim to it all. That's why an operator wasn't hired, in my opinion. Would it be Aqua's problem? Maybe. Now, because of the lack of proper execution here, we're facing staggering fines by the EPA up to $100,000 a day until we employ one. It's very obvious that the mayor and Mr. Zuppel have been caught with their pants down, and we, the residents, are expected to pay the price once again. As a resident and businessman, like many others here, I'm appalled and embarrassed by the current administration and many of the council members. It's our water. We need to keep it our water. And if we don't do something pretty soon, my concern is the sign on the east end of town that says City of St. Clairsville is eventually going to say Village of St. Clairsville.
Yep.
That's my concern.
Thank you, Mike. Kathy, you have something different?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to talk about the water, but yeah. So I'm Kathy Ostovich. I'm a realtor here in town. I've been a realtor for about 24 years now. And before that, Mike and I started Primetime Video. We've been in business 40 years. And we've taken the punches with the city over the years. And we can tell you all kinds of stories that wouldn't interest you right now. But I've stayed quiet up until now because of my profession, because I don't know who's for and who's against, and I try not to be political. So I try to keep that to myself, but now I've taken enough, and now it's time to talk about it. regarding the water situation, everything that Jody just said is spot on, and everything that Mike just said is spot on. So I'm not going to repeat any of that, but everything they just said is exactly how so many people are feeling. Why I'm standing here before you is I have had numerous people already with the negative Facebook stuff going on, the stuff in the newspaper, the stuff on TV, and it's affecting our values. It's not affecting them yet so much, but I'm afraid it's going to. I have a listing right now here in town. It's close to $400,000. And their comment to me was, wow, we're glad we're selling now. Jeez, we're glad to get out of here. I've had other people call me lately. And, okay, we're looking around the St. Clairsville area. And it used to be the phone calls I would get is, oh, we want St. Clairsville. Nowhere outside St. Clairsville. You know, we don't want Bel Air. We don't want Martins Ferry. Only St. Clairsville. Want to be. And now it's not what I'm hearing. I'm getting calls saying, anywhere but in town St. Clairsville. What about that mayor? What about that service director? What about that water? And I'm just really afraid that we're just like going down a rabbit hole that we're not going to come out of if we don't get out of this mess. And do I have the answers? No, I don't. But as a realtor, as a business person for 40 years, watching how this has all happened, and like Mike said, that didn't happen overnight. And I don't think we should be making this decision right now, this fast, just because, well, I'll just leave it at that, just because. Okay? So that's all I want to talk about. The other thing I'm just going to touch on, and I'm not going to take the time tonight, but the city community garden, I'm very concerned about. Once again, a St. Clairsville City epic fail. A lot of money was put into it. It's just trash now. Nobody does anything with it. I'm an avid gardener, and I've supported it every year, and I've volunteered there every year. I've provided water, and it's just going down the drain. So that can go for another meeting, but just something for you guys to think about, because I'll be back about that later. And that's all I have.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to our reports.
That's all right. That's okay. I think by now everyone knows who I am. My name is Catherine Tallman. I'm nothing more than a concerned citizen. And I just want to say I've gotten into this, and the more I peel back the layers of the onion, the worse it gets. And Mr. Zuckel and Mr. Pugh said at the last meeting, we will do everything for the good of St. Clairsville. Well, let me show you. Here's a report. Drinking water source assessment from the city of St. Clairsville from June of 2017. I've got copies if anybody wants them. They're highlighted. Drinking water quality monitoring summary. A review of the St. Clairsville public water system compliance monitoring data from 2000 to 2016 revealed that the system had no water quality violations. None. 16 years. And again, I have copies. Now, 3 years later, and you have been in charge of the captain of the ship, even though you said to council that they will get sued, let's pretend we're in the Navy. If a ship goes aground, it's the captain's fault. Here's the report that came out the last council meeting, and here's what we've got. A list of violations that are as long as my arm. What has happened in 3 years? You both said, for the good of the city, we'll do what we need to do. I think at this time, it's time for the Pugh administration to go. And I think we need to let them now begin to heal from not just the water crisis, from a lot of things. The trees, the crisis in the police department. We need to let this poor little town start to heal. Thank you.
With our reports. Sheriff's Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Just a few moments here to read a brief report. I have a few matters of discussion, but at the last few meetings we discussed the poor condition of our water and sewer treatment plants and water distribution and wastewater collection systems. For anyone who questioned the need of investment in these systems, the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency issued the last notice of violation which outlines several serious deficiencies that we face. Again, these orders and mandates come from the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency. I'd like to update you on three main issues of that report: the efforts we made in attempting to hire a Class 3 operator for our water treatment plant, the status of our responses to the EPA, and the most recent list of violations, and how I'm going to address those, and the state of the ongoing discussions with Aqua Ohio. We've been looking for a Class 3 operator since March through professional contacts and EPA recommendations. We believe that the EPA would be flexible with us on our requirement to hire a person with this certification because we already have 2 Class 2 operators who are pursuing their Class 3, and the EPA realizes there is a shortage of these operators across the state of Ohio. This is a statewide problem, no different than the infrastructure problem that we're facing here all over Ohio and throughout the country. That was until a recent survey of the plant by EPA personnel and subsequent letters where we saw the condition of the plant. They monitor it monthly. Since the survey, we've increased our efforts to find a Class 3 operator. The universe that these individuals operate in is very limited. We have a list of all the qualified people in the area, and I've been reaching out to each of them individually. In case there's someone outside the Ohio Valley who's looking for a job change, we are also advertising in the following publications: the Ohio Operator Training Commission, Ohio Waterworks Association, the H2O Newsletter, the Ohio Water Engineering Association, Ohio Rural Water Association, and on our website. So far, we haven't found an operator interested in joining our operation. Based on the feedback we've been getting, I believe there are 2 main reasons we're having trouble attracting talent. The first is the condition of our plant and the distribution system, and no commitment to fund necessary improvements. If a person signs on to lead our operation at the plant, they are putting their professional reputation on the line. People understand the failing condition of our plant and know we don't have the resources to make the needed investments. If we hire someone and there's a catastrophic failure in the treatment plant, it will leave a permanent mark on someone's professional reputation. The second reason I think we are having trouble attracting talent into this position is even though Aqua has agreed to hire our employees if we reach an agreement, I think it is a lot to ask someone to make a career change and maybe even move their family, and it's clear who will own the system over the next few years. It might be a difficult decision to make when you don't know who your boss is going to be and there's no security involved. As far as notice of violations from the Ohio EPA, the next item I would like to address are those items: the treatment and the distribution system that we currently maintain. As required in the letter, I plan to respond to them in writing within the next 30 days. We are working on more manageable issues as we acquire revenue. However, there are issues that we simply aren't equipped to address without additional resources, like reducing our water loss amount from 30 to 40% to below 15%. The month of August, our water loss percentage was 52%. As I told council recently, finding the leaks is one thing, but the real challenge is when we find them, we need the resources to fix them. In addition to this incredible amount of water loss in our system, we do not have the modern firefighting pipelines that we need. 25% of our system is 4-inch water pipe, and we know that many of these pieces of pipe are leaking throughout the city. We just don't have the funds to take them on. When you take out water pipe today, you must rebuild the street and fire system, not only to state standards, but to federal standards and American with Disability Act requirements. Items like repairing the holding tank that is leaking at the lower level of the water treatment plant, those are small issues compared to the others of evaluating our main reservoir, a provident reservoir, establishing a backflow prevention program, improving our asset management plan, creating a valve exercise program, and the list goes on and on. Our utility department isn't equipped to undertake many of these projects, and we don't have the resources to outsource them. Frankly, our hope is to pass the responsibility on to an organization that has experience with massive projects such as these, as well as the expertise and resources to implement them successfully. The mayor and I are meeting with the chief, Craig Butler from the Ohio EPA, on Friday of this week. We plan to discuss the challenges we are facing related to both hiring a Class 3 operator, addressing the list of violations at the meeting. I will brief council as I get additional information. To recap, without big rate increases, we do not even meet the qualification to raise the millions of dollars we need to invest. Let me restate, all options for funding are still on the table. Should council choose to increase rates to meet requirements for assistance, only this council has the authority to take that action. We can't afford to wait years until Belmont County builds their new plant. We don't have any guarantees that they will be able to fill all of our needs if we do wait. The city has delayed fixing our crumbling system, and the needs to increase rates has been there for years, for decades actually. And the situation is critical as the plant and our system reaches the end of its useful life. And I'm quoting the Ohio EPA, that our system has reached the end of its useful life. The administration expects to bring you the proposal for the first reading and your eventual consideration on our next meeting. The city needs to decide on a clear direction very soon or face significant consequences for noncompliance with the Ohio EPA. In two other matters tonight, Councilman Oprish asked me for a letter at the last meeting where she had some questions. I'm going to give that to her tonight. And I did answer all those for her. That's a public record. And I had several phone calls today for those of you that see the rather large water trucks going through the city from the water plant to the wastewater plant. I've been asked many questions. Are those trucks with the oil and gas companies fracking? No, they're not. That company is known as Zemba, Z-E-M-B-A, Zemba Brothers Incorporated. They are a large vac system company. They have 3 trucks operating and 3 drivers. As mandated by the Ohio EPA, we are backing out our carbon lagoons and taking all the sediment from the water plant and as permitted by the Ohio EPA and putting that water and carbon material on our sand bed filters at the wastewater plant. So that is just our own material going from the water plant to the wastewater plant as required by the Ohio EPA and with a price tag of, we believe, between $70,000 and $100,000. So if described as a small fix, it's not a small fix. Everything that we do at that water plant is very expensive, and we have a small customer base to pay the bill. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions?
I just would like to make everybody aware what the questions were that were asked.
Yeah.
So, and I appreciate Jim supplying this for me, but I appreciate everyone's interest in this water issue and any issue in the city of St. Clair. So this isn't public record, so if anybody wants a copy, I'm not going to read all the answers, but you're welcome to have a copy. I just want you to know what the questions are, just in case you want those answers. So the first question I asked, where have we advertised for a Class 3 operator? Second was, when did we start looking for a Class 3 operator? Third was, what's the plan to meet the EPA deadline of October 9th if we've not filled the position? The fourth was, what's the plan to address the issues highlighted in the EPA report provided to council at the special September 10th meeting? Then it was the information we've received at council meetings doesn't seem to be consistent. You've maintained that we need $20 to $25 million to fix and maintain our current system, but are not eligible to even apply for a loan until our rates are 2.5 to 3% of the MHI, median household income. But that's not the information that was presented by Quicksaw or RCAP. There's conflicting information presented, and I'm looking for clarification. And then my last question from the last meeting, not my last question, my next question, apparently. I'm baffled by your and the mayor's urgency in this matter. I cannot see how having RCAP assist us with a financial feasibility study, a water audit, and a cost analysis completed by an engineering firm would not be in the city's best interest. Waiting 90 days to get that information certainly shouldn't make or break a decision of this magnitude. And then I said, I understand that and do not doubt that our utilities are in need of attention. The other option that I still don't have an answer to is to what it would take to maintain our system and to address the violations outlined in the EPA. The $20 to $25 million that you have stated that we need is the amount for new plant and replacing distribution lines. I do not have the experience that you have or the expertise of an engineer but I don't see how addressing the violations in the latest EPA report could cost tens of millions of dollars. And then I will conclude with the last question is, the way I see it, a council person's responsibility is to listen to the people and to ask the tough questions when necessary. So those of you who think that no one's asking questions, and I mean, that's just not true. Oh, no, I didn't write down just that's it. When a citizen of our town brings a concern to my attention, I have an obligation to seek answers on their behalf, which is what I'm trying to do. As a representative of the people, I'm glad the citizens are becoming more involved in the local government. I have been and always will be willing to work. So those are the questions. Mr. Zuppel's given some of the responses, so I mean, if anybody wants a copy of this, you're more than welcome to have a copy of it.
Actually, I've given all of the responses.
In your report, I've just seen this now,
Well,
so
I heard you say some, I want to make sure I answer.
Oh, no, there's writing after every question, right?
Thank you.
So I didn't mean to imply that it wasn't, this is the first I'm seeing, so I haven't looked at the response.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, as long as we're on the subject, last Friday, myself and Tim Porter and Jeff Vaughn. Jeff, are you here? Jeff's not here. Jeff's the engineer in the area, and he is familiar and works directly with the county, with their water system. And so I wanted to sit with him and take a look at all the violations that were given by the EPA. And so I started looking through them, and I said, well, Jeff, would you meet with me down there? So he said, yeah, okay. So we met, because he's a technical person, he's an engineer. And my idea of this is I kind of gave it to you in Reader's Digest a little bit. You know, I have an understanding of it because I am in the business of a lot of the things that we do here, but he's a professional. So we went through these one at a time, and we asked him what is the remedy to this, what is the cost to repairing this, whose responsibility does it lie on. We broke it up into two lists, and one was operations and one was administration. And if you go through here, I didn't count them all, but I'd say at least 6 or 7 of these were completely administration. And all that was is record keeping. It was filing reports on time or having reports that had more information that they were looking for. Like for instance, here, the asset management plan is a desktop activity which it was missing information. You can see the list for the EPA, actual EPA report, but like roof penetrations on the finished storage tanks, they're beyond their 5-year window for inspection. I mean, those are simple things. A lot of the things in this were very simple things to fix. One of the things that I was looking at is here. A light switch needs to be located inside the chlorine room door window to operate the light inside the chlorine room. You're moving a light switch. It's not that much money or time. We're looking at things like the glass in the chlorine room on both doors is clouded. You've got to be able to see in the room when you turn the light switch on. They're just common sense things, and these are things that have been carried along for a long time that have been necessary repairs, and these are the things that the EPA is also looking at. We get into some other things that are like, here's another one for operations. The sewage holding tank for the containing bathroom, or for containing bathroom and other plant waste, was full and observed surfacing through the manhole cover. That's a septic tank. But it doesn't have a leach field. They have to come and suck it out just like if you had a camper. All right? That had been let go. Here's another operational compliance. The lowest of 3 surface water intake openings is not operable. In our lake, you've got three tubes, top, middle, bottom, and as water changes over the seasons, you all know this because you live here, the water changes. You want to get the best quality water you can, but that lower intake has never worked. The valve is too costly to repair, and it's never going to be fixed. At least if we have a 5-year expectancy on our plant. You are right. I mean, our plant is it's hobbling on crutches. But the thing is we can keep it long enough with nominal costing repairs until we can't go on county water, which we're going to end up going on county water no matter what we do. We're not building a plant, you know. And when we had Quicksalt, I keep wanting to say Quick Draw, like Quick Draw McGraw, but Quicksalt. You know, they spent the first 45 minutes talking about, hey, you know, we could do this to the water plant, expand this, and build a new one. This is the cost difference. It's never been in the cards to do that. So my first question was, why are we even talking about this? It's all, everything we have to do is to get the plant up and running to where the EPA can approve it and to say, okay, cool, you're good. And then we concentrate on our distribution. But granted, there are some things there that are quite costly to fix. No question about it. Like, here, this isn't terribly costly, but it is costly. The visible water on the floor of the basement piping gallery is along excessive running or rusting and corrosion of the pipes on the inside. They're not rusted through, it's surface rust. They need to be cleaned up and painted. But before we could do anything like that, we've got to be able to get the humidity out. We've got to be able to. There's a common wall in there that is shared with the sedimentation pond that we have the filters in, the carbon filters. It's always wet. It's kind of it's not leaking, but you know how you have seepage in your basement, that whole kind of thing, where you're not getting water in there, but it's always wet. And the EPA wants that gone. So the fix is, at least in Jeff's position, is we take the one side of that little retention filter area, you suck it dry, you power wash it, and you seal it like you would a basement wall. And you fill it back up. That alleviates that liquid. We also have pipes that are just kind of bleeding off into the drain. What we do is we hard pipe those into the drain. And we put dehumidifiers down there. This is actually the real fix to it. Is it a little expensive? It can be a little bit, but it's not to the tune of millions of dollars.
What's a little bit?
About $5 grand. And then you've got the extra added fee of sucking the balance of the sediment, because they didn't suck all the sediment out, they sucked a good portion of it. We got to get the rest out, it's got to be power wash clean, and then they use fiberglass, just like, kind of like fix your basement, same, Mike, you know about that.
Right.
You fix the cracks, you fix this, you know, it's a big membrane that goes across that wall, you refill it, and you don't have any more leaks. So these are the things that we can do. The other expensive one is there's a minor oil leak in the turning mechanism of the clarifier. It's a holding tank, you know, for water. And in order to fix that, well, at first it was fixed, or they thought it was fixed. And they picked up the whole upper assembly and they rebuilt it, but that really wasn't the issue. There's a little more costly thing. There's a felt membrane that's like a gasket and it's lowered into that system. So you have to have a bucket truck or a small crane. You got to take the assembly off the top. You got to repair it. It'll put that clarifier down and out of service for about a week. We'll probably have to go with county water for a little bit to supplement what we've got in our tanks. And as far as Jeff was telling me, I think it was about a $10,000 to $15,000 repair. But I mean, if we could do these things on our own, why not do what we could do on our own? I mean, these are all simple fixes. They're not rocket science. It's compliance and mainline repairs that our operators can do. And I think the biggest issue is a lot of the stuff hasn't been done because we have limited human resources. We have limited people working out there. A lot of people have left for different reasons. There's people that quit. There's people that, I don't know, we don't have the employees anymore. And you have to be able to monitor what you're doing. You can't just keep leaving the control room and going and doing different things. Like, for instance, chlorine. You're never going to have one guy bringing a big thing of chlorine to dump into the system. You have to have 2 men. That's an OSHA requirement. So if you don't have 2 men, and there's a lot more like this. like the Provident Reservoir. It's rarely used. We usually use that upper reservoir. We turn it on a couple times a year just to exercise the valves, that turn open and close. But you know what? We had a low-level algae bloom. It was being treated. It's under control, and the city views this as a vital source for raw water, but it must be properly managed. And it hasn't been properly managed. Let me take that back. It has been fairly properly managed. The problem is we live in an area that freezes and thaws and freezes and is cold, and we have big rainstorms. And every single year, no matter what we do, when we put that copper blah, blah, blah into the ponds to keep the algae blooms down, we're still going to get some algae blooms. We have surface water, and that's why eventually the EPA is requiring us to get away from surface water because it's volatile. The final thing here, I mean, there's more here, but I'm not going to go through them. If you guys want copies, I've got our report available to you. And this is the truth. I'll read this. The water plant is in poor condition due to its extreme age and lack of substantive replacement upgrades over a period of time. We're not here to blame old administrations. It is what it is. We have to do something with this. And one of the options is really to keep it and to do it ourselves. The other option is to sell to Aqua. I'm under the conviction of that this is something that we need to keep. And that's why I'm speaking to tell you this. The Ohio EPA is requesting a general plan that identifies and evaluates alternatives for providing a long-term source of drinking water for the city. The city has not provided a general plan providing this evaluation. The city is desiring that Aqua of Ohio purchase the water and wastewater infrastructure so that the city does not have to deal with evaluating options, providing a long-term source of drinking water for the city. I mean, there's two sides of the coin. I'm under the conviction that no, it's the wrong thing to do is to sell because we can fix this. It's not huge money to do this. Now, in our meeting, in our finance meeting, you brought up other things that were issues, all legitimate, all things that we need to look at. They're going to be part of the equation of what it costs to fix it, and at least put that on the table so we know what it is and so we can see what's the real cost. Just adding this up, Jeff and I were kind of like batting some numbers around. And he's the professional, and we're thinking 35, 40,000. That's one month's bill for the city.
Can you read, Perry, would you please, for the group, would you read number 10 on that list?
Sure.
I'd like to respond to all of those if I may, Mr. President. So I'll let Perry read number 10 if you would.
Sure. This is the lowest of the 3 surface water intake openings is not operable. The purpose of the 3 intake is to allow the operator to take raw water to the plant from the optimal depth on the reservoir. The lowest intake has never been in use due to inappropriate gate mechanism. Water has never been taken from that depth. Replacing the gate mechanism would be a costly item that would require draining the reservoir. The city would prefer not to replace this gate due to the unknown feature of the water plant and the high cost/benefit ratio of possible but doubtfully higher quality water at that depth.
So, if I may, so what the EPA is talking about is draining the reservoir. And I could talk about this for hours, but for example, there's 3 strata in our intake, and the lowest strata was built to be designed to use that lower strata. It cannot be used because the reservoir over time has been filled with sedimentation. It's never been cleaned, never been dredged out. So what the EPA has told me as service director, in which I'm aware, you don't go out and just dig. What happens, you have to require to bring in a diver. The diver goes in and he analyzes the whole system, which is a standpipe. That information goes back to the EPA and is given to us as a recommendation. The recommendation is, if we need to dredge that out. So dredging in the world of service director, anything over $50,000 by state of Ohio law has to be bid competitively. So we would have to bid that. And trust me, these fixes that Perry's mentioning, and I'll go over them briefly with you, but they're not easy fixes. The second letter, which is part of that document, so we're talking about a main reservoir issue that could be millions of dollars. It's not, if you paid attention to the newspaper, you'll see Grand Lake St. Mary's, the city of Toledo, the city of Flint, Michigan, all had problems with harmful algal blooms. Algal blooms move as the temperature gets hotter, they move up and down. So we can't adjust our intake to get away from the harmful algal blooms. We treat the reservoir with copper sulfate. The problem in EPA, why they showed up, and why they showed up a month ago, was harmful algal blooms can morph into saxotoxins, which are a bacteria, a stomach virus that you would have in your system. If you reach that harmful level, you have bacteria in the water, they shut the city down. That's happened all over the state of Ohio.
In my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but this has happened, this is a frequent thing that happens in
Right,
reservoirs.
based on
correct?
temperature, yes.
So this is not new.
Right.
This is something that has happened over the years, is that correct?
Well, and again, I'll remind the group, I've been here 3.5 years, and I can tell you harmful algal blooms weren't addressed publicly like they are today. They're getting worse because of upstream septic systems, agricultural runoff. Lake Erie has a dead zone. You can Google harmful algal blooms and read about them. So Beth, they're getting worse as time goes on. In the last 3 to 5 years, they've gotten incredibly worse. That's why the city of Toledo had to shut down their system. They're known in reservoirs. It's coming from fertilizers, chemical applications, septic systems. There's a whole world of people that study this. Our system is not unique. They also, the EPA, I don't want to downplay any of this, it's a safety concern. They also address in there, if we're not going to use the reservoirs, we have to abandon the reservoirs. So, you know, the regular issues that Perry's brought up, the manageable issues, we're taking care of them. The other, number 10 in the second document is, there's 10.4 miles of 4-inch pipe, that piece of pipe on the end, that is in the city of St. Clairsville. Almost a third of our water system. The EPA states that you, by law, legally cannot have a fire hydrant on a 4-inch water main. In that report, they are telling us that we have to remove and replace 10.4 miles, eventually, a 4-inch water main needs to come out of the city. Now that doesn't mean you just go out with a backhoe and start digging. Again, in the world of a service director, you have to have it engineered. You have to have a permit to install from the EPA. You have to pay the EPA. I have to come to council and advertise the bid. I have to accept bids. We have to award the bid. And then you have a general construction plan that would take years, if not decades, to take 10.4 miles of pipe out of the ground, which means you take everyone's street, some of the worst streets in the city are Iona, Hutchinson, South Sugar. You blow it out from curb to curb, new water lines, new sewer lines, new storm sewer lines, new water taps. You have to put in a whole new road system. You have to build it to federal law with ADA compliance. Millions of dollars. That's not Jim Zubel. It doesn't matter who's here. That's what you have to do. The Provident Reservoir in 2016, in October, we had a drought. We tried to pump water from Provident. It's fed by an 8-inch line to the main reservoir. One night of pumping, we drained the Provident Reservoir. I can assure you it's no more than 2 feet deep at its deepest. The rest of it is solid mud and silt. The EPA said it either has to be cleaned out or abandoned. So I don't want to downplay any of those situations. Perry mentioned a gasket. We do have a gasket in our large clarifier that has a large mixing mechanical structure. Cindy can validate that was a $100,000 fix. You have to bring a large crane in. You pull the whole gear assembly. It was pulled. The problem was with the seal. The plant is so old. It was built in 1929. The mechanical seal is a felt, huge, large gasket. Had to be custom made. Couldn't even find that gasket anymore. So it had to be custom made to a tolerance that except the tolerance is slightly off. The contractor has to fix it. I assure you it's a large crane pulling a multi-ton gearbox out of the system. And we have to shut the system down and pay the county to use their water at the same time. So I'm just here to give you the facts. I don't want to downplay it. You can check with Cindy on what the price tag of all these equipment parts and pieces are. The city has put, at this point, over $400,000 this year into the water plant that we don't have. The problem is the customer base. We don't have a large supplier of buyer of water in our city. Our 3 largest users are the schools, nursing homes, and the dry cleaners. So that's a fact. It's not a world where we have a Colgate Palmolive or a customer that's using 100,000 gallons a day. And on top of all that, we have a 50 to 52% average water loss. So I'm not going to downplay it. It's a severe issue. The EPA deals with me, they deal with the mayor. My job is to inform council and make wise decisions. So very complicated process, not as easy as it sounds. Yes, there's some small components that need fixed, but I can assure you that plant was built in 1929, and the EPA, and you can read in all their reports, their wording is it has exceeded its useful life. So we don't have employees capable of doing that. We have good employees, but you're talking about contractors with large equipment, very specialized, heavy-duty work. So again, that's what I read. You're all welcome to that report. You can read it. So.
Well, let me go back to number 10.
I don't know if we want to debate all this all night. There's about 30 pages there. So.
No, I got 4.
Okay.
Replacing the gate mechanism, or that mechanism that you're talking about, where you got to pull the gearing out. The gearing was pulled out and repaired, but they didn't change the gasket.
They did change the gasket.
That's not what I see.
It was custom made because that was a 1929 product. Nobody had a gasket, so we had to have a custom gasket made. And as it's in the water, we use a vegetable-based oil because we don't
have
petroleum product.
Petroleum into that
but the
water.
tolerances, it's so old, the tolerances allow for a little bit of leakage, but it's a vegetable-grade material. So.
See, but it's still fixable, and it's not $100,000.
Well, it's $100,000 the last time. We just did it, what, a year ago, Cindy? So.
Well, they did a bad job. Then they need to come back and fix it.
Well, I think
but here's the thing too, is if we go back to your sedimentation.
we had a contractor, I can't tell you right off the top of my head, but it was a large crane, it was a multi-ton piece of equipment. I don't
Could you
remember.
let us know who's it?
Yeah. As far as I can tell, if you're reading the actual document from the EPA with that time, what street was that? What's it called?
Provident?
Yeah, Provident. It's got a clean bill of health. We could use it, even though it is low. And it's really rare that we do use it. We just use it to exercise our valves. You got to open and close them every so often, else they get rusty and they get bad. I mean, worst case, we do shut that off, and we just don't use it anymore. I mean, really, so what? I mean, we could just continue to use it to exercise our valves, but there's nothing wrong with the water. Our main pond, that's the one we have issues with the algae blooms, but that's every year. Nothing's ever changed. And that whole pipe that we're getting the fresh water off the bottom, you know, I mean, our water turns all the time, and we haven't used that in, I don't know, tell me 30 years, maybe more. And, you know, it's not, they wrote this on here as a violation, but if we have a plan with the EPA, we submit something decent to them, and they see that we have an end game that's viable, I'm not going to screw with us with that, because we've been using it the way it is for 30 years. We have good water here. It's fresh. It tastes good. It didn't taste good when I first moved in here, so whatever you guys did, you get it? It tastes good? It tastes a lot better.
It's okay.
You know.
You shouldn't drink bottled water then.
Thank you.
Well, I get it for free. You know.
People should learn on whether they want to.
So, you know, my point here wasn't just to, like, I'm not throwing darts at Mr. Zukel and the mayor for they're trying to do something. That's not my point. But I think we still have to give ourselves an opportunity to do this on our own.
Exactly.
And if it, you know what, if it falls flat and we're like, that's a really sucky idea, or the engineers say it's not cost effective, or what do we have to do? All right, so what? Then we sell. But I think we owe it to ourselves as citizens and lifelong citizens here in St. Clairsville to at least do that.
Mr. Basil, just a second. My question here is, and I don't, as a business person, I need maybe some clarification here. Why in the world are we even looking at Aqua? Why are we looking at a company that has multiple violations, has a bad history? What are we doing here, people?
Why did they want to buy it?
They want to buy it because they can make money on it.
Well, let me address one of that. What was your first question?
I just want to know why we're even considered dealing with someone that obviously you know.
Well, you know what, they're not a terrible company.
Oh, really?
They are in some areas, like where I came from in Illinois.
Right.
You know, they've got a lot of
I
lawsuits
can't
out
believe
there.
you said that.
Well, wait, but you know what, they work good some places, they don't work good some places.
They're owned by the
How do you
same
know they'll work
people.
here?
Well, no, you let him speak and I'm gonna speak. They're owned by the same people. They're rated D- everywhere they go.
Bill, that's enough.
Well,
But
you
don't
know
sit up
what?
and say they're not a
but
bad
here's
company.
the thing, they still are a company and they are an option, but they're not the only option.
The option should be the people vote on whether they want to go with Aqua or increase their rates. Bottom line, the water was given to us by God.
Bill, you're out of order. That's enough. All right, we're done with this.
Well, you can.
You got a question, Jim?
I just want to get one figure here. Unlike anybody else, I would be concerned in making the repairs as cheaply as possible. I don't know, I wasn't down there, I don't know, I didn't talk to Jeff, I don't know where he came up with $35,000 to repair all this stuff. But Cindy, correct me if I'm mistaken, aren't we looking at just around $80,000 just to remove the sludge down there?
Or more. I'm on my second purchase order right now, because the original one was between 30 and 40,000, and they came back with another one the same amount.
Well, understand that tank is split up into two sections. You know, it's got a divider down the middle, you got half the tank, you got the other half. The half that's against the wall, that you're having some seepage with, if we just empty the rest of that tank out and clean it up, we can fix that. And it's already almost empty anyway, because they sucked almost everything out of it. So.
All right, Barry,
I will leave it there, but if anybody wants a copy of this, I got some copies, or else give me an email address, I'll email it.
Mr. President, can I have one quick comment? I know I'm not on the agenda, but it may set some minds at ease.
quick.
Okay, back in the 90s, I was president council, John served on council with me. Just as a safety valve, the city we had a horrible drought back then. The city did construct what we called the Belair Loop. The valves are still down in Neffs, between Neffs and Belair. And we actually purchased water from Belair and transmitted up to that Belair Loop. So in the case of an emergency that Mr. Zuckel talked about, you know, when the reservoir had to be drained, we do have a safety valve.
Nice to know.
I've just heard that for the first time. What do we know about this?
I've never heard of it, I'm not aware of it.
There?
I was stuck to find out.
So you'll tell me more after?
We had that, Jim, we did have it in 2009.
It was about 1990.
1990 we put that in. I don't know if it's still existing, but we had to draw it.
The valve system's still there. It's between Neffs and Belair.
I think the only concern right now might be that it supplies the water.
Would they be able to supply us the water now? Because they're having some serious issues themselves right now. So the valve might be there, but I'm not sure. We'd have to check with Belair. I'm
We
not sure
take
they
that
can
information.
supply
If
us.
we need to talk to you, we'll get with you. We're going to move on. All right.
Well, I still have another question about the water, sorry. But we all got an email this week, I believe, on September 11th. It looks like it went to the city administration and to all the council members from Edward Kidston. And I just wondered what the administration's response is to that.
The only response so far is I've talked to the county about him, and they said he had some innovative suggestions for them. They're talking to him, we're going to talk with him, but I guess, I guess my take on this, Beth, if you read down through there, what it appears he wants to build a plant, and then he wants to sell us bulk water, and then he insinuated is you can charge any rate you want, but he doesn't mention the distribution system. And so, it appears to me, the only thing he's thinking about is putting in a water plant. No concern for the source water, but a water plant to process it and then sell it to us to distribute it. And he said, you can, I think it says in there, quote any rate you want. But, so we haven't talked with him yet.
But our plan is to. The plan is to contact him.
Yes.
I'm just looking at the type of email. This is
I
public.
guess something else I'll say. He's supposedly, this little village is out by Toledo.
Yeah, it's
And I looked at water, yeah.
Just a
Pioneer.
Pioneer.
And I started looking at water problems in the Toledo area, and I didn't find anything on him. But somebody mentioned Toledo problems. They spent $500,000 on, or $500 million on the algae bloom situation up in Lake Erie where they were getting their water. But I also have to be concerned if they had all these problems, why didn't his name come up when I did the search out there?
Yeah, and in no way am I saying this is the answer. I'm just going with another option. The title of the email, and if anybody wants to copy this, it's a public record. It came to all the council and to the administration. Happy to share it, but you have another choice. Now, that's why I'm asking. I don't know if this is legit, but all options are still on the table. So I just want to make sure that we're following up with this option.
If I may, for the order of the group, as the mayor mentioned, to elaborate, just so you know, we've heard we're not going to build another plant. His option is we would build another plant. So that's what he does. He's in the business of building plants. He doesn't touch this distribution system.
And also, number 2, want to provide funds to pay off your existing debt. I'm just saying, I feel like if all options are on the table, we should talk to the guy.
Yeah, I have a question. Maybe you guys know the answer, but I don't know if it's rumor or what I heard, but is it true that the EPA is only going to allow so many, I don't want to say surface water, so many water deep wells for the region?
I never heard anything about that. I can ask Greg Butler the question.
Yeah, that'd be a good question, because something like this, I mean, if the EPA is looking at, hey, you know what, we're going to limit the amount of wells, we're going to bring all these communities together, then, I don't know what kind of viability that is.
Okay, Mayor, you do that.
Okay, I'm off the water subject. Actually, mine's short and sweet. I just want to again thank all the crews for all the hard work. They've been out, the street's been out, painting stripes and got everything done around the school. Now working through the town. Of course, we had a big windstorm a couple of weeks ago, and they were also out with water and sewer collecting all the debris from that. And then, of course, some people in St. Clairsville realized last night that a driver was texting and took out 2 of our electric poles, knocked out the power to part of the city. And I want to thank our electric department who was out there until early hours of the morning getting that all fixed. Something else that everyone should take a look at, the new water tanks going up out in Commons. They have the walls and the dome up now. It's starting to look like a water tank and moving ahead. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, that with the township, Cindy informed me, put $4,000 in their paver, and I said thank you, so we're going to use it. And we're going to be addressing the alleys in town. Hopefully we'll be starting next week into October. That's all I have.
Very good. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Trees. I've gotten a lot of comments about people upset with the trees.
Well, this happens to be, I was not an arborist, but I did own St. Clair Lawn Care for 38 years. So I was involved with a lot of landscapers. And my feeling on these trees were that some of them were the wrong trees planted in you don't plant oak trees when you only have about 12 feet to a building line. But the sidewalks were raising. The trees had never been trimmed in 30 years. And and I was getting complaints from some of the business owners about the trees on the roofs, on the side. So we did contract, we went out for bids, and this was the low bidder. And in fact, it was a bundle. In fact, Mike had a tree at one of his house that one tree trimmer wouldn't even give us a bid on, which was on our right of way, but was leaned over Mike's house. And that same company went in, that was part of the bid package. So, you know, I've heard good and bad. I think some of the trees should have been totally taken out, such as the big oaks. They don't have a purpose in St. Clairsville. I think it's opened it up. I personally like the way it looks, but I've always felt, in talking to landscapers, again, I'm a turf guy, maybe that's why I'm not real dear to trees, because they kill turf, but if you don't trim your shrubs and trim your trees, there's nothing beautiful about it. There's no work involved in them. They belong in a forest. And these trees were never addressed in 30 years. So that's my take on that.
Any other questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor. Move on to our police chief.
I have nothing this evening.
Any questions for him? Thank you. Finance Director.
I emailed you today ordinance number 23. This is a move of $200,000 from the Water Department's Permanent Improvement Fund to repairs. This is a result of having come up with more money for the backing and for that concrete.
Yes.
So this is, instead of just cherry picking it and doing 50,000 here, 50,000 there, I'm moving it because we've got that whole list of things to do. And that has to be done on an emergency basis because I've already got purchase orders against it, moved in my system so we can move forward. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions for Cindy? Thank you. Planning and zoning, Mr. Murphy.
Two items for council, just some good news. You've probably seen that the Pizza Milano structure, that renovation is continuing. They're doing a lot of the interior work now. Much of the drywall work is completed, and they're kind of doing some of that finished work. As far as a date when they're going to open, there's no definite date yet, but I'm sure it will be before the end of the year. Many of you, I'm sure, have seen they're framing up the new structure on the west side of town, across from Burger King, in front of the Knights of Columbus. That's the structure that's going to house the Taekwondo studio and another office. So things are moving along there also.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you. Move on to our council committees. Finance, Mike Smith.
Yeah, but two short things. For council, I'm going to meet with Jim and Cindy to go over the projected water rates and try to drill down a little deeper into those numbers and see where those numbers came from. That's number one. And number two, I don't know if council's ever been informed, but Cindy has the rec center accounting systems running pretty good now. We talked about that in the meeting. So that's all I have.
Questions for Mike? Thank you. Utilities, Frank?
I have nothing to report. Bad to hear about the driver last night. Is that person okay?
As far as I know, it was just one year injuries. A brand new truck though, didn't make his day.
Can always replace the truck.
Injuries.
That sounds good.
Thank you. Any questions for Frank? Thank you. Please, Mark. Questions for Mark? Thank you. Raise your side, Jim.
Glad to hear that we are going to get the paver. There was one of those alleys that was in very, very bad condition is the extension going up parallel with Newell Avenue extension. The St. David Alley that goes up behind King Auto Glass and all that area up there. So that is one of them. I talked to Mr. Moore that they run the business up at the top of the hill. and he's going to be very happy that that alley's getting done, because it's probably one of the worst in town.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Jim? Thank you. Street South Side, Beth?
No report.
Any questions for Beth? Thank you. Safety, Jim?
Next safety committee meeting, or safety meeting for the employees will be down at the city garage on the 26th. My understanding is it's going to be on CPR and first aid. So anybody that has time, may be an interesting thing for the council people, everybody, if you get some information on first aid and CPR. That's 26th at 9 in the morning at the city garage on Reservoir Road.
Any questions for Jim on safety? Thank you. Clean grounds, Perry?
Yeah, I think I said enough.
Yeah.
Grounds.
I think you did too. Any questions for Perry? Planning Commission, Mike?
I have no report on that.
Any questions for Mike? Thank you. Fire District, Frank?
Yeah, next regular meeting, Wednesday, September 25th, 3 o'clock at the main station.
Questions for Frank? Fire? Thank you. Correct. Report, Linda?
Our new program coordinator, Debbie Reed, seems to be working out very well. I don't know if you knew, council knew that Olivia had to step down.
Did not have anything.
Yeah, Olivia stepped down and not, as I said, Debbie Reed.
That's because she went back to school for her master's degree.
Right. I'm sorry. Sorry, I didn't know that.
She didn't like her job. She wanted to
No,
go back
right.
to college.
Yeah, because I think she loved it, actually.
Anything on Park Park Place, right? So.
Right. Not important.
All right. Any questions? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our ordinance resolutions. Mr. Meisner.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Tonight we have three pieces of legislation we need to address. The first one is Resolution 2019-20. This is a resolution that's going to be read for the third time and will be voted on tonight if council so wishes. This is the resolution that we have addressed for the last three meetings regarding the borrowing and the reimbursement of permanent improvements for the Bellevue sanitary storm system. That will be read for the third time tonight and action to be taken on that tonight. We have two other pieces of legislation to be proposed for the first time tonight. The first one is 2019-22. This is a resolution recommending that the city administration, working with the utility committee, investigate options or any possibilities to come up with some type of alternate improvement program or funding for improvements for our city water and sewer systems. This will be read for the first time tonight. If the council wishes to suspend the rules and pass it on an emergency basis, it could be passed tonight, or at least it will be read on its first reading tonight. The second piece of legislation is ordinance number 2019-23. This is the ordinance that Cindy just addressed council on. This is an ordinance to actually transfer some appropriations to meet some normal expenses and other expenditures in the city. Cindy would like this particular legislation to be passed tonight, meaning that the rules suspend the reading of this ordinance for 3 times, that we suspend the rules, that we read it tonight and pass it tonight, so that it can take effect immediately. And those are the 3 pieces of legislation that I have. No one has contacted me about going into any executive session for tonight, so as far as I know, we will not be going into executive session.
Questions?
Yeah, I'd like to address Resolution 22, 2019-22. 2 weeks ago, I made a motion to look into working with RCAP to look at options. So I'm going to advise of council to provide language to make a it into a resolution, so that's what 22 addresses. So I want to make sure this is something I feel strongly about, and I just want to read some of this language because I think that everybody needs to know what's in this resolution. Recent council meetings, representatives from Quicksaw and RCAP have addressed the council regarding various options for improving the city water and sewer systems. The council finds it prudent to investigate all options to improve and fund improvement of its water and sewer systems. Therefore, be resolved by the council of the city of St. Clairsville, the city council recommends to the city administration working with the utility committees. They investigate and explore Quicksaw and RCAP and other appropriate agencies or resources for any further options available to the city for the improvement of water and sewer systems and funding of these options. Anybody who has attended council meetings know that I usually cringe at an emergency, and I'm always asking what's the emergency, but I would ask that we pass an emergency so that we can move with having a relationship with RCAP and engineer.
Okay.
Well, whatever we've got, so 2019-20, which is Bellevue, so that's probably what we're doing first. I just wanted to address that.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to move on to reading the resolution. We have for third reading, resolution 2019-20 on its third reading.
Resolution number 2019-20, a resolution declaring the official intent and reasonable expectations of the city of St. Clairsville on behalf of the state of Ohio, the borrower, to reimburse its permanent improvement project fund for the Bellevue Sanitary and Storm Sewer Separation Project, OPAC project number CR3OW, with the proceeds of a tax-exempt debt of the state of Ohio and declaring an emergency.
For the third reading of resolution 2019-20 on its final reading, motion for passage. Linda? Jim? Roll call, please.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Rosevich? I'm sorry. You've been promoted.
Notice the resemblance.
That's Oprish, she votes yes.
Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Velas?
Yes.
Okay. Now I have resolution 2019-22 on its first reading.
Resolution number 2019-22, a resolution recommending the city administration working with the city council, utility committee, explore further options with W.E. Quicksaw Engineering Company and the Ohio Rural Community Assistance Program for the funding and improvement of the city water and sewer system and declaring an emergency.
You've heard the reading of resolution 2019-22 on its first reading. Is there any further?
I move that the rules requiring ordinance and resolutions to be read up against 3 separate readings be suspended and declared an emergency.
Second. Beth? Roll call, please.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
No.
Jordan?
No.
Obrich?
Yes.
Sabatino?
No.
Smith?
Yes.
Velas?
No.
Mr. Council President, so my question would be, if we're not going to do it in an emergency, are we allowed to read it for the first time?
Yes, it will be, that's what we just did. We read it for the first time.
So this is still on the table?
Yes,
It's just not an
it will be read for the
emergency?
second time at the next meeting.
So it's just not an emergency?
Correct.
Okay. So this is the first reading. I just want to be clear.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we've had the first reading. It's just not an emergency. This guarantees that we will get it. That's all this is. That's fine. I'm willing, but that's 2 weeks.
All right, we're going to...
We can't do it.
All right. Ordinance, we now have ordinance 2019-23 on its first reading.
Ordinance number 2019-23, an ordinance to make reallocations, supplemental appropriations within the fund, general fund State of Ohio, for the period January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
You've heard ordinance 2019-23 on its first reading. Any further action?
I move that the rules requiring ordinances and resolutions be read on 3 separate readings and suspend and declaring an emergency.
Second. Mike? Roll call.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan?
Yes.
Overage?
Yes.
Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Velez?
Yes. Please read ordinance 2019-23 on its third final reading.
Ordinance number 2019-23, an ordinance to make reallocation of supplemental appropriations within the funds for the normal expenses and other expenditures of the city of St. Clair, state of Ohio, for the period January 1, 2019 through December 31, 2019, and declaring an emergency.
You heard ordinance 2019-23 on its third final reading. A motion for passage. Mike? Jim? Roll call.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan? Yes. Overage?
Yes.
Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Velez?
Yes. Okay. All righty, we got correspondence, homecoming parade. You read on that.
Did we do that last week? Yeah, we did it.
Yeah, you had it on here, it's always something different. Homecoming parade we approved last week, right?
Yeah, this one's about a church thing.
Oh.
I know. That's pretty good, isn't it? It's a fall festival behind the Calvary Presbyterian Church. They want to block off the alley. They did that last year.
There wasn't a problem the last 2 years.
Great.
The fall festival in the alley behind the church.
They blocked off the alley. I think this would be the third year.
So the community list?
It's a church sponsors, that's the Halloween type ball festival.
Linda, second. Mike, roll call, please.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan? Yes. Overage? Yep. Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Velez?
Yes. Okey-doke. I'll let them have their fall festival.
Okay, I'll let them know.
Oh, yeah, we got sugar tea, we better talk about that.
All right, I don't know if any of you were here when this happened, but I scheduled a trick or treat on a Friday night once when Mayor Vincenzo's wife was the superintendent of schools. And I thought it was okay. The game was out of town. No, in St. Clairsville, it doesn't matter where the game is. You don't step on their football. So I had probably already told 100 people that we were having it on Friday and had to change to Thursday. Now I'm getting bukus of calls from including the new athletic director at the school informing me that this year's Halloween game is on a Thursday night in Wheeling. So I decided I'm not making this decision by myself. You guys get to make this decision with me.
Well, we have voted on this in the past.
Yes.
So, was the 30th, October 30th, Wednesday? Is that what you're suggesting?
I was thinking Friday, but it's okay with me.
Well, that's November 1st.
Wednesday's the 30th.
So is it Halloween on, I mean, couldn't have it there? I mean, I don't know.
That sounds good. Keep it right in the, all right, that's fine with me. Wednesday the 30th.
But we have to vote on that, right?
Yep.
Okay, we need a motion for the Halloween or trick-or-treaters to be on the 30th.
So I make a motion for trick-or-treat in St. Clairsville to be on October 3rd, Wednesday, October, is there a time? Wednesday, October 30th?
6 to 7:30.
6 to 7:30. I make that motion.
Second, Joe. Roll call.
Basil?
Yes.
Bookmeyer?
Yes.
Jordan? No. Overage?
Yes.
Sabatino?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Velez?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll let them know.
Anything else to be? October the 7th in this council chambers at 7:30. Thank you all for coming.